Okay, so it's an honor to introduce you to Robert O'Dowd, who is going to deliver what we call the Graham Davis keynote lecture. This Graham Davis keynote lecture is in honor and memory of Graham Davis, who was the founding president of Eurocall. And it is delivered by scholars or, people who have made substantial contribution to our field, either in terms of scholarship, innovation in teaching and learning languages, language policy, and so on. So Robert is our third Graham Davis keynote lecture, and he's following in the steps of Anna Jimeno and Carol Chappell last year. Robert is no stranger to the Call community. Many of you would have read his work, would have met him at conferences. He's originally from County Clare in Ireland, which I think is the nicest, my favorite county in Ireland.
I agree, yes.
Yeah, so if you ever go to Ireland, do go to County Clare. I really recommend it. And from there, he has made a serious impact wherever he ended up teaching. In Ireland, in Germany, and Robert has been in Spain at the University of León for many years now, where he's teaching English and applied linguistics, and he's also the director of the International Training Center there. He has published widely in Call, and you will have read some of his work in relation to telecollaboration and language education. And today's talk, 20 years on and still reinventing the wheel, a critical review of telecollaborative exchange in FL education, is likely to be very stimulating and probably a bit provocative.
Well, maybe, yeah.
So I would ask you to give a very warm welcome to Robert.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Not too loud. Okay. I'm very nervous. I was very nervous this morning, and when I came in and saw this, I was even more nervous. This is very beautiful for you, but it's very intimidating for anybody that has to talk here, I think. But it's certainly a magnificent place. As Francois says, I have been coming to Eurocall for many years. I was thinking the other day, my first ever academic presentation at a conference was at Eurocall in Besançon in 1999, 16 years ago today. I had not so many gray hairs, but the topic was more or less the same, I'm afraid. So, some people would say that's a good research focus, and others would say it's a lack of imagination. I'm not too sure. You can decide about that. But for the past 15, 16 years, on and off, I have been coming to Eurocall, talking about telecollaboration in different aspects of it, teacher training, intercultural learning, task design, all these different things. And Eurocall has always been very cozy, in the sense that I am coming to a conference like Eurocall, where most people are more or less on the same wavelength as I am about these things, about why we use technologies, about why we connect learners with each other, about what are the goals of language teaching. More or less, when you walk into a Eurocall presentation, you know that people more or less know what you're talking about and will probably agree with an awful lot of what you're saying. However, over the past couple of years, two things that have changed in my life, shall we say, that have affected me the way I look at things and have influenced this talk this morning. The first of them is that I was the leader of a European project, a lifelong learning project called Intent, which was all about telecollaboration. And like I said, in Eurocall and in other conferences, I was used to going and talking about telecollaboration and everybody agreeing with it. In these lifelong learning projects, there's a nasty thing called dissemination, right? Which sounds awful, and it's actually hard work as well. Because it's all about going and telling people that know nothing about what you are doing and convincing them that it makes sense. And I had to go to Brussels a couple of times to talk to all these European bureaucrats, or whatever you want to call them. I had to go to conferences that weren't language learning people, that didn't involve language learning people. And I saw, as I talked about telecollaboration and how wonderful it is and how brilliant the whole idea is, I got blank looks. I got raised eyebrows. People were not convinced. They well, maybe this isn't necessarily the best thing. And another thing that happened to me was that I was given this position at the university in León, which is called Director of International Training. Now, what does that mean? Well, the vice rector that gave me the job, he goes, well, you work it out for yourself, basically, what it means. And of course, one of the things I did was, okay, I'm going to introduce telecollaboration not only to language teachers, but teachers all around the university and all the other different disciplines. And again, I get blank looks. I get, scrutiny. I get things like, well, this doesn't really fit the way I teach at all, type of thing, So I think this has kind of led me to think about, and it coincides a lot with what we're going to be talking about in this conference, which is the whole idea about reassessing, what we do, why we do it, and whether it makes sense, and whether we can prove to others that don't think like us that it does make sense to do these things. Yeah. And there's another good reason for doing that now. I'm going to try and not stand in front of anybody. And anybody recognize this book? Tone, you remember this book? Yeah. This book by Mark Warshaw is called Virtual Connections. As far as I know, this is the first publication ever about what we call today telecollaboration. Okay? And look, happy birthday. It's 20 years old today. Or this year. Okay? I mean, that's a long time. But it's amazing. I got it out the other day and I was looking through it and stuff. And it's amazing. Not only do so many names that we might know from the Eurocall conferences even now we're writing even then about it. But also many of the themes and many of the tasks and many of the topics that we talk about nowadays were appearing then as well. Of course, the big thing that has changed are the technologies, right? Instead of talking about MOOCs, they were talking back there about MOOs. Remember the MOOs? These multi-user domains and all of these type of things. Okay, so what we need to do, I think, after 20 years of doing this, is do what Eurocall, what the challenge that Eurocall 2015 sets out for us, which is to unpack and examine some of the assumptions that may have become ingrained in our practice, and also to reflect on the state of call and language pedagogy. Okay, so there are questions, like I said, from the inside, from us, from the Eurocall community. Okay, but like I said about these other people, that do not work in our area, okay? Or even language teachers and language researchers who are not working in call, all right? They too are beginning to ask us very difficult questions and challenging questions, saying, where is the evidence to show that after 20 years of research and work in this area, that it's actually really leading to language acquisition, intercultural learning, and things like that, okay? And myself and Tim Lewis, and another colleague that some of you might know, we're co-editing a volume, right, about telecollaboration. And we were in negotiations with a very respectable series with some I won't name their names because it's not right, series editors, but big names that you would know, right? And when we sent in the original application with the original proposal, right, one of them wrote back to us saying that what we should look at in the book is this. It would be good to know what kind of intercultural exchange is actually fostered through telecollaboration, or whether telecollaboration is mostly like to reinforce stereotypes in mostly monologic postings. Now, if you look at that carefully, what this person was saying to us is, I kind of think, or we kind of think, that an awful lot of telecollaboration reinforces stereotypes in mostly monologic postings. There's a growing belief a growing suspicion among many people that what we are doing in these telecollaborative exchanges is not as effective as we think it is, okay? And that should lead us to think about selling ourselves better, producing more convincing research and more convincing work, okay? Maybe I should have done this because in a plenary presentation, maybe there are some people that don't even know what we mean by telecollaboration. What I understand by telecollaboration, and what we're going to be talking about this afternoon is this, okay? Engaging groups of students in online exchange with partner classes from other cultural contexts or geographical locations under the guidance of educators or expert facilitators, all right? So the important thing is I'm talking about taking classes of learners in university, mostly in my case, and connecting them with other classes in other universities around the world, under the guidance of teachers or facilitators. Now, there's lots of other types of things being done where you connect your classes to fan groups and community groups. There's lots of work being done where you collect your students within their own class together. I'm not talking about those type of things. And I'm not saying because I'm talking about this is better than the other configurations. What I'm saying is this is what I'm researching, okay? Now, can you think of any other names that this is known by? Because this is a problem. I mean, E-tandem, for example. Any other names you can think of? E-twinning, E-tandem. There's so many. Look, if you go to Europe, to go to Brussels, you can't talk about telecollaboration. You've got to talk about virtual exchange. All right? That's what it's known as in the lingua of Brussels and all the politics and the project funding, virtual exchange. If you go to the United States and you go to the SUNY universities, and they're doing an awful lot of work there, they call it COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. Okay? Judy Bells and Steve Thorne brought out a book a few years ago that called it Internet-Mediated Intercultural Foreign Language Education. That kind of died because it doesn't roll off the tongue, I suppose. You know, it just, okay? In Europe, we talk about e-tandem, but are there any Brazilian colleagues here? In Brazil, there's a huge amount of people led by João Teles, I think his name is, João Teles, and he calls it teletandem. And there's a huge amount of literature coming out about that. Okay? In secondary school, they talk about e-twinning and e-pals, right? And I came up with another one myself just because I didn't think there was enough of them, right? And I was talking about online intercultural exchange, right? Now, John Rubin, who is responsible for COIL, or his wife is, according to somebody that just told me, one of the problematics of this format is that it is called by so many different names, thereby making it harder for the practice to be more commonly understood and implemented. Now, this is a problem. That, you know, it's called so many different things. But I have yet to come up with a solution where we can all agree on one name for it. If I come to Eurocall and the call research community, it is known as telecollaboration. But if I go to Brussels and try to get a project, I have to talk about virtual exchange. If I go to America, I will probably have to talk about COIL. Okay? And I have yet to come up with a solution or an idea, but I think what we just have to do is adapt and understand that basically telecollaboration can be called an umbrella term that covers a lot of these. Okay? Now, how many people here have organized a telecollaborative exchange during their careers for their students? Hands up. How many people have done it? What's that? Half? No, almost half. Quite a lot. Okay? But this is the problem here now, that because this is a plenary talk, half of you are probably very familiar not only with how it works, but also with the literature about it. Okay? But the other half are probably not so familiar with it either. Okay? So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to give a very, very quick, and I'm going to ask Françoise to interrupt me after 20 minutes if I'm still going on after 20 minutes. Kind of like a summing up of 20 years of history in 20 minutes. Okay? Which is quite superficial, but it wouldn't be the first time I'm accused of that in academia anyway, so. Okay, but before I begin with my super history, okay, this is my main argument, okay, that maybe after 20 years of being used widely in telecollaboration, we see that in the Eurocall conference, almost half of you have done this, okay? Are we becoming a little bit stuck in what I call a comfort zone, okay? Or what Mark Warshauer said to avoid 20 years ago, which was reinventing the wheel, right? What do I mean by a comfort zone? What do I mean by a comfort zone? That we are limiting our exchanges purely to foreign language classrooms. That we are limiting our exchanges to bilingual, bicultural exchanges, French learners of English with English learners of French, etc., etc. An awful lot of the things our students are writing about are low-risk tasks, hobbies, fiestas, my weekend, things like that. And our research, the research we're doing on it, an awful lot of it is about short-term impact of short-term exchanges. Okay, now I'm going to go into these later on. I'm going to come back to them and talk about them later on, stuff like that. But what I think is this. If it is as valuable as many of us think it is, because we think people that do telecollaboration normally do it again and again because they see great value in it educationally, right? If it is as good as we say it is, shouldn't we be doing something extra? Shouldn't we be trying to make it maybe more relevant to the future needs of our students by getting them to do certain tasks that are more related to what's coming to them in the real world? Shouldn't we be providing more evidence of its effectiveness, kind of selling ourselves better, making it more accessible, you know, with the research we are doing? And shouldn't we be striving for its integration across university education? We may be language teachers, essentially, but this activity that we are involved in, maybe we should be trying to sell it, to introduce it to people that are teaching in other disciplines, okay, and how to go about doing that, okay? So that's my main argument. Now, 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes. In 15 minutes, here's a summary of telecollaboration. Here we go. Okay. Name the pioneer telecollaborators. Who's he? Mark Warschauer, okay? He is, for me, the father of this, basically. As far as I know, he's the man that coined the expression telecollaboration, and his books were the first books ever to appear, as far as I'm concerned about this. Who's this interesting-looking man? My German colleagues should know this. Miriam, do you know who this is? This man in Germany in the 1990s had a most magnificent website that trained teachers, told teachers about how to set up email exchanges in schools and how to run them and things like that. His name is Reinhard Donat. Okay? This man was magnificent. Again, in the late 90s, when nobody else was doing this. Colleagues from Finland, do you recognize this lady? Ruth Vilmi, right? Ruth Vilmi had this thing called the International Writing Exchange. And she was, as far as I know, the first woman that ever took this outside of pure language learning. And she got engineering students in America and Finland to make robots together over the internet, okay? In 1996, 1997. I mean, these are real pioneers, yeah? And this man here? Rick Kern. Okay, a man that I saw today, he's a brand new book outside that's on show out there. I mean, he's from the beginning, he's been writing some of the best research there is about these things. Okay, in the 1990s, if you wanted to find a partner, where did you go? This site, it still exists. Where's Breffney? Breffney O'Rourke? There. Breffney, this site still exists, it's still online, but I doubt if it's still being used. The eTandem site was set up in 1994, between 1994 and 96, because of a European project. Trinity College in Dublin was one of the homes of it, and then the man in Brammertz in Bochum, I think he was, wasn't he, in Germany? Okay, and there you send in requests for eTandem partners. And they also have still there a list of tasks you can use and things like that. And then there was this magnificent place, which has totally disappeared, which is the IECC, the Intercultural Email Classroom Connections. Okay? And these were social psychologists. They weren't even language teachers. And they set up in those days kind of a mailing list, a listserv, which not only helped to find, what did they say? 28,000 requests for email partnerships between 1992 and 2001. Okay? Now, obviously, most of these would be secondary school, high school education, okay? Not university. Okay? And there was a man there called Bruce Roberts who also had this mailing list of discussion, luckily many years ago I printed out these discussions because they're all gone now, and you'd people like Mark Warschauer and Roberts and many other people just discussing, you know, what was the best way to go about telecollaboration and things like this. All right. Now, in the 1990s, what you had is principally reports of good practice. Okay, and the main interest lay in linguistic development and learner autonomy. Okay. You had this great book, Brave New Schools, by Jim Cummins and Dennis Sayers. Mark Warschauer brought out telecollaboration in foreign language learning. And then Reinhard Donat brought out this one, The Transatlantic Classroom, which is a collection of work. You know, these two, and most of the other books at the time, were collections of good practice more than research, okay? And the typical exchange in those days was eTandem. Okay? And for eTandem, I suppose most of you are familiar what it looks like. This is what an eTandem message looks like. You have an American student writing to our partner in Spain. Okay? It was great to receive your letter. I was so happy to see that you responded to my questions. Thank you. Your response is very informative. Okay? And then they go on. And a very important aspect of eTandem was always that one student would correct the other student. Students were in charge of being the other student's tutor, so to speak. All right? Your English is very good. There are only a few suggestions that I have, and then they correct all the mistakes. And then it is the American students' turn to write in bad Spanish and to make lots of mistakes. And then her English partner or her Spanish partner would write back going, your Spanish is very good, and here are my suggestions. Okay? So this was basically how eTandem worked. Right? Now, then in the 2000s, we had this book. This was like, I think, the first proper collection of hard research on this area by Warschauer and Kern. Okay, Language Learning and Technology dedicated a whole special issue edited by Julie Bells, okay, in 2003. And Bells and Thorne brought out this book, Internet-Mediated Intercultural Foreign Language Education. Okay, all right, so there was it. And along with that, along with this, all of this research, came this interest not so much in linguistic development, but in the intercultural learning developments that could happen. No? And many of you will be familiar with this model of exchange, which is called Cultura, okay, which was developed in MIT and between MIT and universities in France, where students would, carry out. They would have a keyword, for example, and they would say all the French answers would be here, all the American answers would be here. Then students in class, and that was what made it so special, is that instead of getting students to do this stuff at home, they were brought into the classroom, and the teacher, as expert, would have to guide the students in their analysis of what they were talking about, right? Okay, and then they would go back to the internet forums and discuss it together. Okay, now recent years, up until today, what's been going on? Well, there's an awful lot of what we call what Steve Thorne calls intercultural learning in the wild. Right? What does he mean by that? That it's taking our classrooms and our classes and connecting them to people or groups of people that are outside of our classrooms, so not in classroom, not in formal education. So use of 2.0 technologies, okay, as Guth and Hell's book Telecollaboration 2.0 suggests. Okay? Steve Thorne connects his learners with online fan communities. And another very interesting work is done by Hannah and Denoy in Australia, where they get their French students to go online to the French newspapers and the internet forums in the French newspapers and interact with native speakers in that way, okay? But there's a contrasting or a competing trend, possibly competing trend, which is what I'm interested in, which is the whole idea of integrating telecollaboration into formal learning, okay? But this is very difficult, because how do you award students credit for it, okay? This is always the big problem. How do you recognize teachers' extra workload? Because if any of you have ever done a telecollaboration project, you know that there's an awful lot of work, okay? And the reliability of partnerships, right? Lots of work has been done in this area. Melinda Dooley, who's here today, is writing about the descriptors of good telecollaborative practice. Miriam Hawke and Teresa McKinnon, who are also here, are doing an awful lot of work on the accreditation of students' work through badges, okay, which is also very interesting, okay? So I think I'm not too sure they're conflicting trends, but they're certainly going in two different directions. Okay? So, the current state of telecollaboration in education. There's a good sign is that we've got lots of financed European projects, okay? Here's just some of them, all right? The most recent one that I know of is telecollaboration, the TILA project by Christy Jauregui. Okay, a wide range of publications are coming out, okay, lots of collections of practice and research, okay, and this is probably most significant. If you pick up books about good foreign language pedagogy, there's more and more chances that you will find mentions of telecollaboration in it, okay? John Corbett brought out an excellent book of intercultural language activities. Does anybody know this book? This is really a good book by Cambridge. And the first whole chapter is on telecollaboration and how to use that. Okay? This book here, Lidicott and Scarino, Intercultural Language Teaching and Learning, is a very important book. I'm going to talk about it later because they dedicate some time to telecollaboration in it, but they're very critical of it. All right? So we're going to have a look at the criticisms. Okay? And there's in this book about CLIL learning, there's also an awful lot of interest in how to work telecollaboration into CLIL classrooms. Okay, so this for me is a good sign. Okay, all right. Now the criticisms of telecollaboration that I'm not going to try and answer, but I think it's important to mention them. Are my 20 minutes almost up yet? No. 5 minutes left. Okay. All right. All right. Hannah and Denoy say that interaction in telecollaboration is restricted to communication with other learners a situation which is limiting for advanced learners who need practice in venturing beyond the classroom. So they're saying it's quite false putting learners into contact with learners. What you should be doing is putting learners into contact with real people in the real world. Okay? It's a valid point. A report on the internationalization of higher education, which is done by the European Parliament and has just come out, I think, about a month ago. They say that the institutionalization of, notice, virtual exchange is what they call it, institutionalizes a two-tier system of mobility. One for the elite few and another for the 80–90% who cannot afford it. What they are saying there is that if you're going to have physical mobility for your students at your university, and then for those that don't go on physical mobility, you're going to have telecollaboration and things like that, then there's like two tiers, two levels. The first division, best students get to go on physical mobility, and the ones that are no good, well, we'll let them do telecollaboration. But of course, our argument would be that isn't the case. We should be combining the two, not making it like a second best option to physical mobility. Okay? And here is Lidicott and Scarino's book. And one of their criticisms says, the task involved in telecollaborations, the task involves students in exchanges across cultures, but the intercultural learning was supposed to happen as an automatic result of communication or engagement with others. What they are saying here is that there is an assumption in telecollaborative exchange that simply by bringing students together, that they will learn from each other, that they will learn from the experience. I will come back to this later because I think this is wrong. This is a misinterpretation of the facts. Okay? Other things that we've achieved, all right, in 20 years. The Uni Collaboration Platform. This is a platform that most of you probably have heard about in Eurocall over the past couple of years, which is a platform where if you are a teacher in a university and you want to find partners or information or training or tasks about telecollaboration, you go here. And it's free to join, you sign up, and there you can find partner classes for your students and things like that. All right? We also have a biannual conference, okay? And I'm going to do a little plug for it now. Stand up, Bref Europe, please. This is the man brave enough to organize the next telecollaborative conference. Bref... There's no need to applaud him. He hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't. Yeah. You applaud him after the conference, not before. But so if you're interested in this, from the 21st to the 23rd of April in Dublin, okay, another great city, not Ennis, it's not County Clare, but it's not bad anyway. Okay. Now, sum up very quickly. What has research told us about telecollaborative learning? Okay, this is very difficult to sum up, but I'm going to tell you what I think are the most significant things. Telecollaboration has great potential for awareness raising of cultural differences in communicative practices. Okay? It's a great chance for your students to experience how other students in other countries and with other speakers of languages use language differently. That language learning is not about grammar and vocabulary, but it is about the way you express things, the genres you use, the way you imply things. Okay? And telecollaboration works very well because learners consider their partners to be people who matter, as opposed to teachers who are people who don't matter, okay? However, exposure and awareness to difference seems to reinforce rather than bridge feelings of difference. In other words, telecollaboration very often leads to, shall we say, breakdown or misunderstandings, culture clash, okay? I don't think that's a problem. I think that's part of the learning experience. But it is very important in that case to look at task design, okay? And very, very important, telecollaboration can be so intense. Students need opportunities to look back and reflect on the interactions that they have engaged in with their partners, okay? And there's many different ways that is being done, okay? Rick Kern talks about la salle de rétrospection. I'm sorry to the French speakers there by saying that. Where he would get students to do video conferencing, and then he gets them to sit down and watch videos of their video conferences, okay? Or Cunningham and Vayatkina to talk about pedagogic interventions, okay? And probably, I think one of the most important things that people do not pay enough attention to is that the skills of online interaction do not come naturally to our digital natives, okay? It doesn't matter that our young people are very good at using mobiles, at using iPads, at using computers. That does not mean they are good online intercultural communicators. And I'm going to show you a very quick, simple example of this. Here we have a German student writing this opening message to her new partner in Ireland. Okay? Here you go. Hello, how are you? I study English and history and I want to become a teacher. This term we do some cultural studies about Ireland and I'm very interested in it because I actually do not know much about it. So far, so good, no? Pretty nice. Now I would like to ask you some questions. Now, I want you to imagine you're an Irish boy, 19, this is your first email, okay? All right. Do you live in Northern or in Southern Ireland? How many people live in your town? Are you a Catholic or a Protestant? I have heard that regular church going declines more and more in your country. Is it true? Where are you? What are you doing in your free time? Do you often go to pubs? What do you think about Germans? Irish people have the reputation of being very indirect and polite in their speaking style. I have read that there was enormous economic change in Ireland. How have you or your parents experienced the social and economic change in the past 20 years? That's all for now. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Poor Sean in Trinity College when he got that message. Okay? This is obviously a very extreme example, but what I'm trying to say is, if we are going to do these things properly, telecollaboration has to be integrated. Teachers have to show or help their students to create their messages and to interpret messages. Okay? And that, which is probably obvious for us, is often not obvious for others. Okay, now, my 20 minutes are up anyway, and this is the second part of my talk. Okay, right. And my second part of my talk is, what do you think about telecollaboration has to offer university education in general? Okay, this is my next question. What do you think telecollaboration, this activity, what does it offer? Not only foreign language education, because that's pretty obvious. Okay, you get to practice foreign language, foreign culture, fine. But how can we sell this or offer this to other disciplines, to other areas of university education? Any quick ideas? Pardon? Employability, because of developing electronic skills and things like that, electronic communication skills, yeah? Flexibility to work with others. Thank you very much. Well done. Anything else? Peacemaking. Okay? Which is relevant not only for foreign language learners, but for learners of all different disciplines. Two very good answers. Okay? First of all, I think it provides international learning experiences for the non-mobile. Okay? Do you know how many students in your universities actually go on study abroad? What percentage of your university students go abroad? Less than 10%, or less than 10. 10%, yeah, less than 10%. Well, you know that we have this wonderful aim that by 2020, we'll have 20% of our students going abroad, okay? Current rate of mobility in Europe is 4 to 5%. Okay, I was very shocked the day I heard that. I couldn't believe that. In America, I think it's between 1 and 3, according to the different reports you read. Okay, so what we are offering here is saying, okay, obviously going abroad is wonderful and should be supported in every way, but every student should have access to international experiences. Every student. Okay, and what we should be offering telecollaboration as a way of offering that type of experience. Okay. The European Commission say that the large majority of learners who are not mobile are nonetheless able to acquire the international skills required in a globalized world. Okay? That's one of our jobs. And there I think telecollaboration has a lot to offer. Okay? And there's a wonderful book. You see this book? I really recommend this book to you that's come out just this year. Globally Networked Teaching in the Humanities. And the editors are Schultheis and Simon. Schultheis, Moore and Simon. And this is basically talking about telecollaborative activities that are being done in the humanities, okay, in the United States with other countries, okay? And telecollaboration meets the need of higher education institutions to help their students recognize the value and viability of worldviews different to their own, okay? This is obvious to us, but we have to tell other people and explain to other people in universities about it. Another, I think, obvious thing is that it's a way of integrating digital skills as part of university education, okay? If, you know, they are constantly telling us that the students of tomorrow, they are going to need e-skills for the digital area, creativity, flexibility, etc. But surely e-skills for the digital area, surely by learning to communicate online and learning not to write emails like the one we just saw, by training students to do these things, we are doing a service not only for pure foreign language students, but for students all over our universities. Okay? The problem is, believe it or not, this is kind of an assumption that telecollaboration develops digital skills. But myself and Tim Lewis, we did a review of 54 empirical studies of telecollaboration's contribution to learning objectives. So basically, we tried to identify all the empirical studies done on how telecollaboration contributes to learning. And we were only able to find 3 in developing digital competence, okay, which is so there's a kind of an assumption that telecollaboration will develop language skills, intercultural skills, and digital skills. But this third one hasn't been proved or proven sufficiently yet. Okay. Now, but to what extent has telecollaboration become mainstreamed in university foreign language education? If it is very valuable to universities, okay, surely then universities and program designers and policy makers in Europe should be waking up to this fact, right? What do I mean by mainstreaming? Well, it's being used outside of the call community. It's been given academic recognition. And I think this is an interesting one. There's an explicit mention and recommendations in university policy documentation. Europe is constantly producing documents, reviews of the state of higher education, the state of new technologies in higher education. And there's lots of policy documents coming out about it all the time. Are they mentioning telecollaboration? Let's have a look. This one, the European Higher Education in 2015, the Bologna process. Higher education institutions have an increasing choice of instruments or activities to engage in the internationalization process. Joint programs, joint degrees, campuses abroad, MOOCs. No mention of telecollaboration. Myself and Francesca have this little game where we send each other these documents when we find them online and go, let's see if they mention telecollaboration in this one. And we are back, no, and not again. Okay, there it goes on. Another one, high-level group on the modernization of higher education. Modernizing higher education, they're bound to mention telecollaboration. Developing educational partnerships is an important element for Europe's strategy for cooperation with others. We are already seeing very interesting developments in MOOCs. There's a theme developing here. Do you get it? Trends 2015, learning and teaching in European universities, MOOCs. Games, gamification. And finally, a green paper on promoting the learning of mobility of young people. Here we go. Virtual mobility, such as the supported by convenience or e-twinning or social networking can particularly be valuable in opening up school-age young people to new contexts and cultures. There's a mentality that telecollaboration is for kids. It's not a university thing, okay? Now, hopefully, if I have time at the end, we get to discuss this a little bit, you can tell me why is telecollaboration not becoming more and more, into the mindset of policy making, okay? How much time do I have left so I can gauge myself a little bit? How much? 10, 15, okay, thank you. Okay, so, Today I'm talking to a group of call practitioners. If I was in Brussels or going somewhere like that and trying to sell this to policymakers, then I would try to make other arguments. But I'm talking to people like myself who are call practitioners. And I'm going to make some very basic suggestions, I think, how we can develop this into a more realistic and popular thing, not only within foreign language learning, but throughout university education. Okay? Okay, I'm going to look at classroom practices, research practices, and telecollaboration across university education. I probably won't have time to get through all 3, but I'll get through the first 2 anyway. So, steps in the development of telecollaborative classroom practices. Okay, one of the first things that I think we need to do in order to make telecollaboration more useful across universities is to move away from this bilingual, bicultural systems that we have. Okay? We saw at the beginning of the presentation that e-tandem is essentially bilingual and bicultural. You've got an English speaker of Spanish writing to a Spanish speaker of English. Okay? Cultura. In cultura, you also need to be bilingual because you're comparing the French reactions to words to the American reactions of words in the 2 languages. So these are, bilingual, bicultural approaches. 45 of the studies that we saw in this study that myself and Tim Lewis did, 45 of the 53 were bilingual bicultural exchange. German-American, French-American, French-Irish, etc., etc. But there were always 2 languages involved, okay? Only 6 of them used the lingua franca, and only 2 of them used multiple languages, right? So what types of partner classes are teaching looking for? In the Unit Collaboration platform, okay? If you go there and you go into the partner search, you will see that mainly teachers are looking for bilingual exchanges. Ideally, it would be bilingual collaboration, writes one person. Another teacher from Yale is looking for 2 German classes, okay, in Germany, okay? So German-English exchanges. Okay, so but my suggestion is maybe we should be now looking more to lingua franca exchanges. Okay, why? Well, first of all, what Kurt Cohn and Hofstetter point out is there's a practical thing here, is that there's not enough English classes to go around in the world. Okay, what happens? It's okay if I live in Spain. I will very easily find bilingual partners for my students in America, for example, because they're studying Spanish. But what happens if I'm in Poland? Okay, how many Polish classes are you going to find in America, for example? Okay, that's just one example. Okay, there's a practical reason here that it doesn't make sense to limit ourselves to bilingual exchanges. And look what Claire Cramp says. It is no longer appropriate to give students a tourist-like competence to exchange information with native speakers of national languages with well-defined national cultures. They need a much more sophisticated competence in the manipulation of symbolic systems. Okay, so we need to be getting students ready for the real world, where even if they're using English, they're going to be using English not with native speakers of English, okay, with people from many other different identities. Okay, Rick Kern says we need to think of computer-mediated exchanges as what Pratt calls contact zones, social spaces where cultures meet, clash, and grapple with each other. Some people say that, but if you don't have the bilingual exchange and the bicultural exchange, then there's not going to be so many, kind of cultural clashes and stuff like that. But that is not true. I had a couple of years ago a wonderful exchange between my Spanish students, Israeli students, and German students, and English students in Coventry. Okay, where the 4 of us used English together as a lingua franca for the exchange. And there was some of the most fascinating outcomes, okay, of this. There are lots of cultural possibilities. Look what this German student wrote. Okay, because this took place during the recent Gaza conflict. Okay, and a German student wrote to his Israeli partners the following: I can understand that the rockets are very scary, the rockets that were falling on the campus in Israel at the time, and I'm very glad that we in Germany don't have war like you. And I think Israel isn't alone in charge for this conflict. But can you understand the people in Gaza? Is it okay to keep these people there like in prison? And he goes on and on. And then you have the reaction of the students in Israel who have, and just think about this, a message like this for a second, brought into a classroom. You've got a German writing to an Israeli with all the historical connotations that has. You've got a German saying, and is it okay to keep these people there like in prison? Is that a question? Is it a question? You know what I mean? This is what intercultural learning is all about in telecollaboration. Getting hot topics like this, hot messages like this, bringing them into the classroom and discussing them with your learners and saying, now, how should you react to this? How could, what does he mean to say by this? Okay? So there's great potential in these things. Not only should we move away, I think, from lingua franca exchanges, but I think we need to improve on the tasks we are doing. Okay? And I'm going to explain why. Okay? I love this phrase by Pennycock. He says, we should beware the empty babble of the communicative classroom. Do you know what he means by that? Can you imagine what he means by that? Talking about your hobbies, talking about the barbecue you were at last weekend, blah, 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 the empty babble of the communicative classroom. I think we're in danger very often of committing the same crime with telecollaboration. Look at these telecollaborative tasks that you come across. This task allows the partners to prepare a PowerPoint presentation about places to go out at night. Explore and reflect on stereotypes, an aspect of their daily routine, to speak about their daily lives. These tasks are fine for opening up exchanges, but they cannot be the only thing our students talk about. I think our students need to be put into more challenging situations. Yeah? Claire Cramps and Paige Ware say we should be aware the illusion of commonality. Because if you spend your time with your students talking about these things, your students at the end of the exchange will say, oh, our lovely partners in America, they're deep down, they're really the same as us. They love going to barbecues too, okay? They love going to on the weekends, okay? Look what my students say to me sometimes. These are two from reflective essays. I will say that I like the exchange and that Missouri students look like very nice people. I talked to them about my city and about theirs, and it was nice to see that there are little differences, but not as much as I thought. Intercultural communication is really very easy. We just get on together and talk about barbecues and having a nice time together. Move on. No challenge for the students. I'm going to move on quite quickly too, because I'm going to run out of time. We need to be talking about telecollaborative exchanges that make students do difficult things together. Maybe some of you will be familiar with this. It's a typology of the different tasks that telecollaboration has. And we move from information exchange tasks to comparing things to collaborative tasks. And these, I think, are the ones that we should be doing together. Getting students to work together to create things together. And these are the messy ones, the ones that cause trouble. I'm going to show you some examples. Okay? Okay? We've got to challenge students to go beyond simply exchanging information and instead to collaborate in the co-elaboration of projects or products. Allport said in 1958, okay, he didn't obviously look at telecollaboration. He was looking at how different cultures live together in New York City, right? He said, the nub of the matter seems to be that contact must reach below the surface in order to be effective. Only the type of contact that leads people to do things together is likely to result in changed attitudes. And look, Sarah Guth, who works here in Padua, and our co-author, tasks must be designed so that students depend on one another to complete the task. Okay? From 1958 to 2015, there's nothing new under the sun, but we're still not doing enough of those type of tasks. Again, I hurry on. Some examples of how this has been done. Some of you will have learned this morning about the Solaya project, which brings together American and Arabian students together and brings them into this kind of round table, virtual round table, where a tutor or not a tutor, a facilitator guides them in discussions about the Middle East. Americans talking about what they know about Arabs and the troubles in Iraq and things like that, and the Arabs giving their point of view to the Americans. Now, and this is hard-line telecollaboration stuff. Later on today, you'll learn also about the sharing perspectives. And sharing perspectives, what they do is they provide video lectures on aspects such as the economic crisis, and then students are brought into video conferences where, again, students from the different universities exchange their opinions. And then, most importantly, I think, students are required to collaboratively design and conduct survey research in their own communities, okay, in order to learn about the broader social impact of the topic, okay? And this is one other example that I love. Reported by Melina Porto, okay? And she talks about getting English students and students in Argentina to do collaborative work about the Falklands War and get them to research what happened how is the Falklands War viewed in Argentina, how is it viewed in Britain, and then making a collaborative website together about it. Now that's telecollaboration that I think will definitely change students, make an impact on students and their learning. Okay, very quickly. Steps in developing telecollaborative research. Okay? This is this book again. Now, I read this book on the plane coming over again last night because I don't want to get this wrong. Okay? But this book, to be fair, by Lidicott and Scarina is a very good book, very interesting approach to intercultural learning. Okay? But they say this about telecollaboration. They talk about a long list of telecollaborative exchanges, okay, including Cultura, many well-known ones. And they say, in each instance discussed above, interaction using its social technology has not necessarily resulted in intercultural learning. The tasks involve students in exchanges across cultures, but the intercultural learning was supposed to happen as an automatic result of communication or engagement with others. In other words, what they're saying is that too often in telecollaborative exchange, teachers are assuming that just by bringing students together, they are going to learn from it, okay? And they say that's wrong. But I would suggest that this is a bit unfair. Okay? Because one of the big things that has come out of telecollaborative research of the past 20 years is the role of the teacher. Okay? And there's so much evidence for that. And there's just 2 examples. It is essential for teachers to help students to go beyond comprehensive, the role of the teacher is crucial. And I could give you 20 more quotes like that. So I think to suggest this, is not fair, okay? However, these are not bad people, I assume, all right? So why are they saying it, okay? Why do they say the technologies make available possibilities that need to be developed as experiences of learning in parallel with the interactions that technology facilitates? So I'm trying to say, why do they think that teachers are not using are not helping students to interpret their messages and things like that? Why is that the case? And I've got one theory, all right? In the review, I'm coming back to the review again. What are the main sources of research data? Online transcripts, okay? Student questionnaires, student interviews, and analysis of learning documents. Do you see any kind of a source of source of data that's missing here? Remember, we're saying that telecollaboration is very important, that it has an online contact, but it also has a classroom or offline stage, which is then where the intercultural learning takes place. Well, what's missing? Reflection. And where does the reflection kind of normally happen in these things? Well, not necessarily in a forum, but an analysis of classroom interaction. Okay? Do you know how many studies, of those 54 studies, you know how many of them use transcripts or examples of interaction between the teacher and the students? Do you know how many mention it? 0. This is amazing. We're saying one of the most important things about telecollaboration is that it has to have an offline stage where students and teachers work together on stuff and analyzing it. And yet we're not showing that in our research. Okay? So the first thing I do is what you do nowadays. You write to your friends and go, why do you think this is the case? And very quickly, we'll just focus on the blue data. We already store so much data. One of them says that we don't need it. Another one says it is an additional workload, transcribing class transcripts, of course. It takes a great deal of time and work, Melinda told me. Yeah? It takes hours and hours to transcribe classroom data. So it's much easier for people just to take the online stuff. It's probably more dramatic as well. The online interactions are more dramatic, okay? But the real learning is probably happening in the classrooms, and we're not showing it. So that's one thing we need to do. And another thing to need to do, and I bet you I'm running out of time. Am I, Francoise? 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, so I'm going to finish up here. Time to take a longitudinal approach, okay? Another thing that we've noticed from the data on telecollaborative exchange is that telecollaborative research is limited to 1 semester exchanges. Now, I suppose if you think about it, that's not surprising, okay? Because most exchanges only last between 1 and 3 months, okay? Okay, and 26% of exchanges last between 3 and 6 months. And Julie Bell's already admitted, she said, longitudinal data are difficult to collect in the tutored North American context where language courses typically last for only 1 semester. And it's the same in Europe now at Bologna. We've got 1 semester classes, 1 semester telecollaboration exchanges. But think about it for a minute. We're looking in our research, trying to prove that telecollaboration makes an impact on intercultural learning, that it makes students more interculturally competent. But we've only got 2 or 3 months to study this development. It takes time for people to become better intercultural communicators. Okay? So how do we do this? How are we going to solve this problem? All right? There's one idea I have. Maybe you guys can suggest other things to me in a couple of minutes. But one suggestion I would like to do, and I'd like to kind of a note to self, okay, is study the long-term impact of different exchanges on one individual student. So, you take your one student and see how she or he develops over one exchange, over one term, another term, and another term, but different exchanges with different partners, okay? But stay focused on the same student and how they develop. That is one other option, okay? I won't lie to you, I have about 15 more slides with 15 more ideas that I could go, but I think I've probably bulldozed you enough for the first, seeing this is your first session, okay? So I'm going to stop here now, and any comments or questions? Thank you very much for listening to me this morning.
Many thanks, Rob. I think we've got about 5 minutes for questions or comments. Yeah. Yes? Hold on, hold on. I think the mic is going to get to you.
Should I?
Yes, but you need the microphone.
Okay. Hello. Thank you very much. Should I, or is it? I didn't get it. Is
No,
this-
we can take this lady first, and then we'll talk to that gentleman. Okay.
Oh,
that's
so
fine.
sorry. Okay, misunderstanding. First of all, thank you very much for a very informative talk. I'm very much interested in telecollaboration. I just have like one issue, one question, kind of that I think I'd like to, see your ideas on. I think that if you're looking for intercultural exchange, telecollaboration at the moment is an exchange between the privileged of one society and the privileged of another society, because usually it requires some things. For example, technology, which is expensive, the know-how, the kind of educational background to understand how to address other people. So usually it will be people coming from upper-class families, from a good... and the problems of a society are very often starting from elsewhere, from the underprivileged. And I'm not really sure that the privileged discussing things with the privileged are really going to get a good understanding of what's going on. Thank you.
A very, very thought-provoking question. I don't think it has an answer or a solution. I mean, what you're saying is very true. But what we're talking about there is a general commentary, I think, on university education in general, that it's the privilege to get to university education in the first place. It's not so much about telecollaboration, it's about university education. But a very fair point. I would accept it. Thank you. Yeah. This gentleman at the very back, please.
Yeah, thank you for a lot of food for thought there. My question is about the what you said about trying to sell telecollaboration beyond foreign language education, and I just wonder about institutional constraints that there are. For example, for us who do research in foreign language education, that's what we specialize in, and that's where we look for the results. And so then the kinds of how shall I say, the tangible research results that we would come out with, and how we would be able to advance our careers, sorry to say, if we try to get beyond our foreign language education, second language acquisition.
I suppose that's a fair point too, but I think there's a certain amount of preaching to the converted going on now with telecollaboration. That's what I said at the very beginning about coming to Eurocall. It's very good to come to Eurocall and to discuss the fine details of how telecollaboration is set up and stuff. But I do think we as language educators and as telecollaborators should have a vocational aspect to us too, which is spreading the word a little bit. Okay, and saying, if this tool is valuable not only just for our learners, then shouldn't we make an effort to introduce this and spread it across the university? Of course, the researchers, but I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't be researching telecollaboration's impact in other areas as well, Okay. This lady over here, yes.
Hi. I've tried a telecollaboration project with an American university. It was in spring, and then it was coming through, but it was very slow. And then I tried that in the summer semester, but without giving students credit. And then American students started to drop out of the project. So my question is that, have you tried a telecollaboration project with the students without giving them credits for their work? I mean, for the sake of culture exchange?
I don't think that it realistically is a long-term viable solution. I think if students are going to invest time and work in this, and if you want them to keep on doing it when it comes close to exam time or holiday time or whenever it is, students deserve and should receive some sort of credit for their work. They really should. I think that's one of the things I would insist on, yeah. This lady at the very back, Marina.
Hello, Robert. I always promise myself not to speak on plenary, but then I can't resist. I want to come to the rescue. The question from the person in the audience asking about discrimination. I come from a university in the UK, which is a former polytechnic, and we are big on widening participation. And we have students from the Birmingham area who come from deprived places and are the first timers at university. My students from Birmingham have had their eyes opened by the exchange with Robert we did 2 years ago, by the exchange we've done with Mexico, and they really had a very funny idea about the world, and now they're realizing they're becoming to know the world and people in the world. And they actually think it's fantastic. And like Robert, I think we should think longitudinal, because these students are growing into different collaborative exchanges, and they're not language specific. So they're, intercultural, and it is about developing something else about something else. But these students have thanked us, team, working with Robert and others, because they never experienced anything like that, and it was challenging. And I get very bad reviews from my students on my module evaluations. And in England, your salary is linked to it. So it's a very risky business to engage with this. But what I get at the end is that they realize what they've gained. And these are really students who have not traveled, they've never been there, and then they're encouraged to travel, and our university provides support for that. So just to say, it's not just for the privileged, in my experience. Sorry, I came to your rescue.
Okay, no, good.
So I hope you quote me next time.
Okay, I'm afraid we have no more time for questions, but Rob will be around for the whole conference, and we're now having a break, and I think Francesca will give you 4 more details. And please do continue this exchange outside this room. And thanks again.